Well, regardless of how we define it, when we start to talk about retirement, the conversation inevitably turns to money. How we would like to live our later life has some pronounced financial implications. And our concern often is, will there be enough? Of course, the reality is that concern about money is not confined just to our later years. Daily, regardless of our age, we wrestle with issues as how to make it, how to spend it, how to protect it. We worry about it, we fight over it. Money is a big deal in our day-to-day lives. And money is a big deal to God as well. While the Bible may not mention retirement, it does have a lot of information about money and our responsibility and relationship to it. So as we proceed in this workshop, we'll be bringing biblical wisdom to bear on our thinking about retirement. Let's look at a brief history of retirement. The concept of retirement is a recently developed form of social engineering. It did not exist in the pre-industrial era. Prior to the late 19th century, our society was family-centered. People worked until they were no longer able. They stayed in their homes. They lived in close proximity to kin, and children supported older family members until death. But with industrialization and increased mobility, that changed. At the beginning of the 20th century, with the Industrial Revolution in full sway, increased productivity became key, and age began to be perceived as a possible detriment to progress. Work often consisted of hard physical labor, which the elderly were not able to perform. Then the Great Depression hit, and in 1935, the government introduced Social Security for persons age 65. Now, keep in mind that at that time, life expectancy in the United States was 63. Not a big risk back then that the government would have to support a lot of folks. Social Security and its whole intent was to encourage older workers to leave the workforce and open jobs for the many unemployed younger workers. With the advent of Social Security, author Lydia Bront, in her book The Longevity Factor, makes a point that business, labor, government, and the financial services industry have conspired, if you will, to portray retirement as a lifestyle of leisure to which citizens have a right as of age 65, if not before, and many have come to see it as a basic part of the American dream. There are those who disagree, and one is Dr. Benton Cooley, age 74 and a pioneering cardiovascular surgeon. Here's what he has to say. Retiring at age 65 is an arbitrary idea, but it sticks in so many people's minds that they assume working past that age constitutes some kind of an abuse of privilege. It really is ridiculous. Well, Dr. Cooley's comments are a good segue into looking at a number of misperceptions about retirement that have arisen over the years. The first of those is age 65 is old and signals a brief time of declining health until death. I'm glad that the reality is that today life expectancy for those who reach 65 is into the 80s and is expected to increase 4 to 5 years in the next several decades. Most financial advisors, in fact, suggest that retirement needs should be calculated on the assumption that you may live to be into the 90s. Suddenly, 65 doesn't seem so old anymore. The second misperception around retirement is that leisure is just as fulfilling as meaningful work. Well, it seems, however, that a lot of people realize that that may not be the case. In one survey, 2/3 of people said they plan to work for pay after they retire because they enjoy working and they want to stay involved. Recent studies indicate that retirement without meaningful involvement or contribution to others leads to high rates of depression, high rates of illness, and not infrequently, death. Full-time leisure is not a recipe for health and happiness. The third misperception around retirement is that older workers should make room for younger ones. As mentioned, the current Social Security system was designed during the recovery from the Depression when massive numbers of young workers needed jobs. In today's technology and service-oriented marketplace, the experience of older workers can be a huge asset. And with baby boomers reaching retirement and the next generation being a much smaller one, we may be facing a future labor shortage. The fourth misperception: people over 65 are less productive. Well, experience and research show that the elderly, in fact, have fewer accidents, make fewer mistakes, have lower absenteeism, and in all but the most physically demanding jobs, in fact, have higher productivity. I had the personal experience of hiring someone named John, who was 67 years old at the time, for a full-time position. In his cover letter, he wrote that after 2 years of retirement, he would rather wear out than rust out. I decided I wanted to meet a guy that would say something like that. And he wound up staying in that full-time position for 8 years and was one of the best hires I've ever made. As Dr. Cooley suggests, it really is ridiculous to think that 65 ends meaningful contribution, whether by working or through other means. Well, these are very common misperceptions. Which one of them resonates most with you?